Thank you.
I do.
You do. We'll call the Wood Village City Council meeting, September 10th, 2024 to order. We will begin our meeting with the land acknowledgement statement. Councilor Tan.
The Shedducken peoples known as the Clackamas and Cascades are the indigenous people of the land now inhabited by the city of Wood Village and other areas of the Columbia River. The village of Nechocli was located near today's Blue Lake Park. Ancestral life of these peoples included seasonal round of resource and stewardship from the Wapato fields and fishing areas of the Columbia River to the cedar and huckleberry gathering areas of the High Cascades. Introduced disease from early settlers dramatically reduced the number of these people. They signed the Willamette Valley Treaty of 1855 with the United States government and were forcibly removed to the Grand Ronde Indian Reservation. We thank the descendants of these tribes for being the original stewards and protectors of these lands since time immemorial. We also acknowledge the systematic policies of genocide, relocation, and assimilation that still impact many indigenous Native American families today. We are honored by the collective work of many Native nations, leaders, and families who are demonstrating resilience, resistance, revitalization, healing, and creativity. We are honored to be guests upon these lands.
Thank you, Councilor Tan. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I'll open this up to citizens' comments. I know we have some that have phoned in or
Correct.
called in.
More relayed.
Relayed.
One actually is a letter. It's in your packet from Sophia. She was one of our scholarship recipients, and it was a very nice letter to read, and certainly wanted to pass it along. Just felt good.
Thanks, Greg, for that. I appreciate you putting that in there, but that is a nice letter from that scholarship.
Another one is go back in the time machine over a month. This is from Mission CIT. They were one of the firms that proposed on the fire analysis study. They wrote and indicated they were not pleased of how it described as a Volkswagen versus a Cadillac in the discussion. And I, certainly apologized and said it really probably wasn't more Volkswagen versus Cadillac. It was the options of the car. That AP Triton highlighted all the options we were looking for, and Mission CIT, I can't count on how good or great they aren't, just they didn't have the same options we were looking for. So pick your make model of your favorite car. They just optioned it differently, and AP Tritons was the options we needed. So passing that along and kind of updating that. Our electronic message center has been on for several weeks now. We've received several comments, I'll call it. Early on is about the brightness. So our code has an 8,000 nit maximum. Its maximum is 7,000. People thought that was still too bright. So we worked over the course of about a week and a half to dial it in, auto adjust it for nighttime. That seems to have resolved that. Another comment was it was tacky, but they hated it less once they learned that we weren't selling advertising space on it. And it was just city messaging from like the county, the state, other partners, Play East, etc. So those have been the comments we've received formally. Informally, people seem to think it's kind of neat and cool. And then lastly, we received a comment about when 238th was rebuilt, they didn't put the Jake Brake prohibited sign back up. And that's been kind of a comment we've received since then. So we actually worked with the county. They put the sign up a few weeks ago for Jake Brakes prohibited with the fine amount. And I worked with our chief, there he is. And we're going to try to pinpoint when the time is most egregious of Jake Brakes. We've heard it's morning time, but we prefer, is it between like 5 and 6, 6 to 7, so they can do a special mission both for speed, Jake Brakes, and semi-truck safety. So we're trying to work with the community on what time is most egregious for Jake Brakes, so we can coordinate with the sheriff's office and do a special mission.
Thank you, Greg. If there's no questions, I'm going to move forward here. And we have our proclamation that we'll be reading into the record tonight for the Hispanic Heritage Month. And Council President Rio Campos will be joining me in reading that proclamation. I will read the English version, and Councilor Rio Campos will read the Spanish. So, and before I start that, I do want to recognize that the city of Wood Village has approximately 48% Hispanic population. And in this city, they are, we have worked with the population. We've worked with various groups in that population and done good work in integrating the population within the population of Wood Village. So tonight, it is an honor to read the proclamation, and I'll begin that. So the Hispanic Heritage Month, September 15th through October 15th, 2024. Whereas each year, the United States observes the National Hispanic Heritage Month by celebrating the culture, heritage, and countless contributions for those ancestors who were indigenous to North America, as well as those that came from Spain, Mexico, the Caribbean, Central America, and South America.
Considerando que cada año los Estados Unidos celebra el Mes Nacional de la Herencia Hispana, celebrando las culturas, la herencia y los innumerables contribuciones que aquellos antepasados que eran indígenas de la América del Norte, así como de aquellos que vinieron de España, México, el Caribe, América Central y América del Sur.
Whereas what began in 1968 as a Hispanic Heritage Week under President Johnson was expanded by President Reagan in 1988 to cover a 30-day period starting September 15th and ending on October 15th.
Considerando que en cual comenzó en 1968, cuando la Semana de la Herencia Hispana bajo el presidente Johnson fue ampliada por el presidente Reagan en 1988 para cubrir un periodo de 30 días que comienza el 15 de septiembre y termina el 15 de octubre.
The date September 15th is significant because it is the anniversary of independence for the Latin American countries of Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua. Additionally, Mexico and Chile celebrate their Independence Days on September 16th and September 18th, respectively.
Las fechas del 15 de septiembre es significante porque en el aniversario de las independencias para los países latinoamericanos de Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua. Además, México y Chile celebran sus días de independencia el 16 y 18 de septiembre respectivamente.
Whereas the National Hispanic Heritage Month is an opportunity to celebrate the rich cultural traditions and honor the significant achievements of our Hispanic, Latino, Latinx people and communities. And
el Mes Nacional de la Herencia Hispana es una oportunidad para celebrar las ricas tradiciones, culturas y honorar los logros significados de nuestros pueblos y comunidades hispanas, latinas y latinx.
The Hispanic population of Wood Village is approximately 48% and represents a wide range of nationalities and backgrounds, which reflect the remarkable diversity of the American people.
La población hispana en Wood Village es aproximadamente el 48% y representa una amplia gama de nacionalidades y orígenes que reflejan las notables diversidad de pueblos estadounidenses.
Hispanic people continue their rich tradition of significant and diverse contributions to the cultural, education, economic, health, and overall vitality of the city of Wood Village.
Pueblos hispanos continúan su rica tradición y contribución significante y diversas a la habitabilidad, cultura, educación, economía de la salud y general de la ciudad de Wood Village.
Now, therefore, I, John C. Minor, Mayor of the City of Wood Village, proclaim September 15th through October the 15th, 2024 as Hispanic Heritage Month and encourage all community members to celebrate the heritage and achievement of the Hispanic, Latinos, Latinx, and recognize their contributions to our city and our nation.
Ahora, por lo tanto, el alcalde John C. Minor proclama del 15 de septiembre al 15 de octubre del 2024, el mes de la herencia hispana, y al tanto a todos los residentes a celebrar la herencia y a los logros de los hispanos, latinos y latinoamericanos y reconocer sus contribuciones a nuestra nación y ciudad.
Proclaimed and signed and sealed on this 10th date of September 24th, 2024, in the city of Wood Village.
Proclamado y firmado el sello del 10 este 10 día de septiembre 2024 en la ciudad de Wood Village.
Thank you, Councilor Rio Campos. And with that, just one more comment that we're proud of our Hispanic community here that call Wood Village their home. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is our public safety report. Chief Stewart, nice to see you tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, councilors. It's good to see you in a few months.
Yes.
So obviously we'll be covering our July and August report this evening. I'm sure you've all had a chance to peruse it. I made some items of note. Our assault calls, we had 2 in July, 2 in August, and that is competing with an average of 6 from this time last year over that same time frame. Burglary calls, we had 3 and an average of 2 over that same time frame of last year. We had 2 stolen vehicles over this. One of those was from an auto auction off Sandy, and that was in July. And then there was one in August, which was eventually recovered and the suspect arrested following a multi-jurisdictional investigation. Traffic accidents, that's been a hot topic for us. We had 23 over the July-August timeframe, and that's compared to 25 from the previous year. With that, as I'm sure that was reflected in our Wood Village newsletter, we did conduct a traffic safety detail in August that was driven by crash data from the 238th corridor. And we combined it with a speed trailer deployment on 238th. That resulted in 24 stops with 24 warnings or 20 warnings and just general presence in the area to encourage traffic safety. And we'll be planning some future details such as that, depending on staffing and available resources. Also addressing the new Jake brake sign. We're hoping to have some truck inspectors out with us as well to address that once we get some more timeframes narrowed down. Couple other notable calls from this time. There were some shots fired into a house on 223rd with no reported injuries in July. The detectives are investigating that, and I can't give any further updates on that, but there were no injuries. And there was a reported robbery at the Best Western in July. It ended up being more of a burglary situation. 2 subjects attempted to steal the till from the front desk and were confronted by a deputy who had arrived on scene. The till was recovered and the suspects took off. So there were no injuries from that incident. Other notes, I know we're a little early now, but just a reminder of the toy drive that's going to be coming up in November. The sheriff's office will be participating in. It'll be similar to last year. Kohl's, Walmart, and Wood Village, Fred Meyer. And then we'll be collecting those toys for the Christmas time. And City Manager Dirks and I had spoke about some interest in a community academy. It's been since 2017 since we've really seen that hosted by Wood Village, and we're in some initial planning phases on that. Kind of take a look at see how long, what resources we would need to dedicate to that, and then we can solicit general interest. But I'll keep you updated.
Okay.
So.
Councilor Smith, I know had that. I was part of an email. And so we did talk, and Greg and I talked. So I appreciate you thinking that through. I know things have changed, and I know that we have Gresham that has their own academy, I believe, right now. And Troutdale, I know they've been actually looking at going back to their own police department. So I know there are some things that are much different than before, but it certainly is maybe a conversation that might be worthwhile to see if there is enough interest and resources from the sheriff's office to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Counselor Smith and myself both graduated from that. So
Oh, excellent.
we definitely enjoyed that very much.
And I'll tell you, when you get 20 or 30 people that have been through this academy we went through, and I think it was a 12
Yeah.
weeks.
Right.
Yep.
And they go out and talk up our police force. It makes a big difference in the community.
Absolutely.
And then when the teens had their classes, they go out and tell their friends, you know, it's that police aren't what you think they are.
Right.
They're different. So yeah, it's great public relations, and I really feel we should bring it back.
Absolutely.
Out of our group, I remember we had a couple of people that graduated and ended up being volunteers out at the, I'll just call it out in the forest area.
Mhm.
And,
Search and rescue.
sorry, yes, well,
Search and
I'm thinking of where they were
Oh,
citizen patrol.
patrol.
And that worked out really well. And so these are things that we could definitely look for too.
Absolutely.
So just a thought to put that out there as part of the ongoing. And these were adults and children. I say children, you know, anybody younger than me is a child, but that's that Volkswagen Cadillac thing, right? What I'm going to get in trouble for.
Here we go.
Here we go, right? But no, that worked out really, really well in that volunteer thing. So something to think about.
And even if we need to do an abbreviated one, you know, not the full 12 weeks, you know, we'll still get the value out of it and the community engagement. So yeah, let's definitely look into that and work towards it.
Go ahead.
To bring that, is that more dependent on staffing or costs or both?
This point of staffing.
Staffing.
Yeah. It's just because we have to have instructors dedicated. And that's kind of the big draw right now. So, but we can certainly plan and prepare.
Oh, good.
Good. Thank you for, following up on that, Chief.
Absolutely.
Any other questions for Chief Stewart? If not,
All right,
thank
great.
you again
Great to see you all again.
and be safe
Great
out there.
report. I enjoyed it.
Any questions about the bills? We'll move on to the consent agenda, the minutes, the OLCC license and the city events. Any questions or comments? Is there a motion?
I move to accept the consent calendar.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the consent agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, our first presentation of the night is our Metro East. Let me get the rest of that title. Come on up, Metro East. I don't have the full Metro East CR. I'm sorry.
MC.
Mount Hood Cable Regulatory Commission.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Right there.
Oh, that says Multnomah.
Show up. Okay, well, welcome. We've seen you before, so looking forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mayor Minor and the members of the council. My name is Reed Wagner. I'm a partner with Next Strategies, and we are helping the Mount Hood Cable Regulatory Commission, which I'll sometimes refer to as MHCRC, as they go through their strategic planning process. So we're here today to talk about some of that process that's going to take place, how you might be involved, give you some background as far as what's happening. These are some information that you've received in the past, so it might be somewhat of a refresher. The context, some of the decisions that will need to be made in the future. I'm here today with a couple other people, so if we could quickly introduce them as well. Maybe I'll start with Autumn and get back to you with Autumn Carter.
Hi, my name is Autumn Carter. I'm managing partner of Next Strategies with my colleague Reed Wagner, who's with you tonight. And I want to thank you for your time, and I'm looking forward to sharing more about our work and the strategic planning process we're undertaking. I will pass it on to Metro East folks. John, I believe you're in the room.
Hey, I'm John Luxon. You might remember me from a few months ago. I'm from Metro East Community Media, head of production on the leadership team there. I'm here to fill in any detail on Metro.
Okay.
I believe I'm going to hand off to this gentleman back here, who may be familiar.
Yeah. Thanks, Scott.
So before I pass it off to Autumn, I want to thank your city manager, Greg Dirks, who spent a good amount of time helping me understand the lay of the land at Wood Village over a holiday weekend, I believe it was. So thank you for that. I'll pass it off to Autumn, who can tell you a little bit more about the Mount Hood Cable Regulatory Commission and what they're currently going through. I'm sorry, we also have Seema, who's the director of the program at the City of Portland. Seema, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing us to present today. My name is Seema Gud-Kumar. I'm the Chief of Community Technology at the City of Portland, and also direct the operations of the commission. Thank you so much.
Terrific. Autumn, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah. Next slide, please. So we're here to discuss the MATRC. The long version of that name is the Mount Hood Cable Regulatory Commission. And we're going to focus on the strategic planning process the commission is currently undertaking. As part of the background materials, we sent a video covering the Mobile Media Lab, a Metro East initiative. So I know you're all familiar with Metro East, but it's important for the public to know that they serve as a community media center and as a major recipient of MATRC PEG and cable franchise fee funding. And that's along with other community partners and organizations that are doing work supported by the MHCRC. If you haven't had a chance to see the video yet, we encourage you to watch it because it is an example of how the media centers and also the MHCRC more broadly are adapting to a changing community, needs in an increasingly digital world. So for the agenda today, we're going to focus this evening, we're going to briefly discuss the commission's background, financial and industry changes, and the upcoming decision-making, the ongoing and upcoming decision-making processes that we anticipate. We'll be sure to leave time at the end for questions. Next slide, please. So here's where we are in the process. MATRC commissioners, staff, and consultant, myself included, have been focused on a strategic planning effort that's designed to explore the commission's future. That includes assessing the needs and the priorities of its member jurisdictions, including Wood Village, as they relate to the telecommunications industry. Specifically this evening, we want to provide some key context and provide an overview of background into the commission's history and the role it plays on behalf of its members, its member jurisdictions. We want to be able to share some of the financial and industry dynamics and the trends that are shaping the commission's ability to fulfill those roles, but also how they've had to change in an increasingly digital landscape. And we want to walk through that strategic planning and decision-making process, including updates on where we are and how we anticipate navigating going forward around these key strategic issues. Next slide, please. Take a step back and give a little bit of the history of the commission. It was established through an IGA, an intergovernmental agreement, in 1992. It advocates, the role of the MHCRC under that agreement is to advocate for and protect the public interest in the regulation and development of cable communication systems in Multnomah County, as well as the cities of Gresham, Fairview, Troutdale, Wood Village, where we are today, and Portland. In its earliest years, commission subscriptions were still rising. And with the introduction of streaming and expansion of broadband services, cable subscriptions have declined substantially. We'll discuss the impact of those dynamics in a few minutes, but I wanted to share that as some grounding. And ultimately, we want to, as we look to the future, we know that the commission is considering the cable market and its needs across Multnomah County, the regulatory landscape beyond the county, and options for updating the MHCRC's IGA. For instance, does it make sense to reconfigure, replace, or otherwise alter the agreement? And we want to look into the role of the commissioner itself. So, of the commission itself. So we'll focus on that at the end, but I wanted to at least set the table for what we're planning on covering today. Next slide, please. So the commission's role has evolved over the years, but at its core, it really serves three core functions. And those core functions have been consistent over the year, even though the way the commission has fulfilled them has changed, and it's changed out of necessity. First, the commission is responsible for negotiating and enforcing cable franchise agreements. It leverages collective influence of its members to negotiate the strongest agreement on behalf of the public. It successfully negotiated in the past, has negotiated fees, customer service protections, reporting requirements, insurance and bonding requirements, technical standards, as well as other concessions on behalf of its members. Number two, the MACRC provides funding to support PEG access and through community media centers and community grants. The MACRC manages and distributes funding that's derived from both PEG fees, which we'll talk about and define in a moment, as well as franchise fees. And number three, it advocates on behalf of the public interest to advance cable policy objectives, and it does so at the local, state, and federal levels. Over time, the MACRC has had to adapt as it shifted, has had to adapt its approach with these shifts in digital media and how we receive our video and how we consume our video over the last decade. So as the regulatory environment the commission navigates is also subject to frequent change, the MACRC has worked to stay ahead of that curve. Some of the dynamics include, some of the kind of key points about the current status include that there's effectively only one cable provider that remains in the service market, in the service provider market. That is restricted competition for those seeking cable services. As the number of cable subscribers has declined, so too has PEG and franchise fees for community media centers. And from an technology infrastructure perspective, convergence means the same fiber cable can carry video to both television and broadband subscribers, while local jurisdictions only they currently lack the authority to regulate broadband providers under federal restrictions. So next slide, please. So let's define PEG. I know that all the counselors probably know this, but we are also presenting to the public. So the MACRC collects what's called public, educational, and government, or PEG, fees from cable companies on behalf of its 6 member jurisdictions. All franchise cable companies pay 3% of their gross revenues related to TV services to the MACRC as dedicated funding for capital costs of providing community media and technology services to the community. These fees are important for supporting the operations of community media centers, funding public access channels, and producing educational programming. They also support technology grants to underrepresented community to increase access to media resources. And we also want to define, next slide, please. We also want to define the community centers and their roles as PEG access providers. So the community media centers, such as Metro East and Open Signal, are the primary PEG access providers in Multnomah County, with Metro East serving the East County jurisdictions, including Wood Village. They provide media and broadband technology training, tools, and distribution platforms to diverse communities in the region. They broadcast educational and government programs and distribute video programming on a variety of digital programs. Both Metro East and Open Signal also provide live coverage of city council meetings like this one, as well as other government activities. So we'll move into, next slide, some of the financial dynamics that are shaping the landscape for the commission and ultimately for its member jurisdictions. The MACRC faces a shifting environment. As we discussed earlier, cable subscribers decline, its regulatory authority grows less defined, and as financial challenges impact jurisdictions and community partners. Now, the commission isn't alone in grappling with these issues, especially around having a federal policy framework that's out of date, especially when we look at the fact that the IGA has been in place for more than 30 years. The evolution of fiber technology, again, now extends beyond just what we have traditionally known as cable television, and it now encompasses both data and voice. And then those funding challenges that also come up with that are associated with a capital-intensive industry and declining traditional cable subscribership mean that together, member jurisdictions need a new strategy and a funding approach. The Commission has been vocal on behalf of the jurisdictions on a number of these topics for decades now, especially advocating, again, at the local, state, and federal level. It's also evolved its regulation of the cable companies as technology has evolved, even though there wasn't a clear and resolved policy structure to guide those changes. Next slide, please. So this slide really summarizes some of the dynamics we've covered today, but to see it all together, we've got five key identified drivers that are really behind the challenges we're seeing. We've seen a technology shift where broadband has overtaken traditional cable services, a decline in cable revenues, where those cable subscriber losses reduce critical franchise fee revenues. We'll show some numbers to kind of encapsulate what this trend looks like in practice and its impact financially. With industry consolidation, there are fewer service providers, and that restricts market competition. This outdated regulatory framework has resulted in no local authority to regulate broadband providers, though now they are the primary service providers, including using the right of way to deliver cable services. And then finally, these reduced cable fees, PEG and franchise fees specifically, their decline threatens media center sustainability and the services they're able to provide to the public. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So now we'll see some numbers. So cable TCV subscribers are on the decline. Many of you probably know this firsthand, or at least you know someone who no longer gets their television through traditional cable services. They may use cable along with other types of services, or they may use streaming, for instance, as their exclusive method to get it. But we know that the decline is not new, but it is occurring and it is increasing in terms of it no longer is holding flat. We're seeing the decline overall. Franchise and PEG fees are calculated as a percentage of gross revenues derived from cable TV subscription services. So while you could have a dip in subscribership be offset by annual rate increases that are imposed by the providers, which did happen, and it helped to hold those revenues steady. In recent years, that has not been able to hold, as just fewer and fewer subscribers are getting their cable or their television through a traditional set box. So as of the most recent data that calculates subscriptions from last year, we can now say that subscribers are now under 100,000 across the county. Next slide, please. So this
Across
slide,
across what area?
so that is across Multnomah County, and so for the last slide, that actually, do you mind going back one slide, please?
Okay. I just didn't know what that 103, I think it said, what area that encompasses.
So that will include the 6 jurisdictions for that are covered
Okay,
under
thank
the
you.
MHGRC.
Thank you.
And so what we see here are the narrowing financials, especially as they impact East County jurisdiction. So this is revenue versus the operating budget contributions. It shows the amount that the MHCRC collects as revenue as franchise fees, and then they are then passed back to the jurisdictions as revenues. So the revenues you see in green here, or the declining line, they're declining. However, to maintain the same level of staff support and advocacy on behalf of the jurisdictions, the Commission's operating budget has remained relatively stable over the years. That's that darker flat blue line. In the next 3 to 5 years, it's anticipated that these lines will converge. So the jurisdictions are looking at less franchise fee revenues, or some combination. The MHCRC is looking at reduced operating budget. And we'll talk about some of those trade-offs towards the end of this presentation. Next slide, please. So finally, we'll show the decline in those the PEG fees and how how we anticipate them impacting the community media centers. So the money that's collected to support capital payments to Metro East and Open Signal, again, that's where most of the PEG fees and some of the cable franchise fees go. And they also help to support the MATRC's Community Technology Grants Program. The decline has been steady, and we continue to anticipate that going forward, we'll see, so you see the right side of the chart, those declines are projected to continue. So with that, that's a big picture kind of overview of the financial and industry dynamics. I'm going to pass it to my colleague, Reed Wagner, who's going to walk through the anticipated strategic planning and decision-making process. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Autumn. And before I talk about the process, I was going to have John talk a little bit about the media centers and the impact on the community. I also want to point out those slides that Autumn just covered. That's the work that your volunteer commissioner gets to work on every month with the Mount Hood Cable Regulatory Commission. So it's a big portfolio of things. But John, do you want to talk a little bit about the Metro East work?
I'll talk a little bit about that. So as you all know, we're here, we're covering your meeting tonight, just through there. So that's one of the big things you probably know us for. And then the other time, the years when we come here with our budget and we maybe just hit a few highlights, I want to do something a little broader and just talk about what we do kind of in general. So we're a nonprofit community media center. We teach the public how to use media, understand media. We have a studio, we have edit suites, and we have a music recording booth. We do youth workshops, internships, provide volunteer opportunities, and we have a sort of a calendar of monthly workshops available. So the notion is you can create your own show, or you can volunteer on somebody else's show. Our rates are shockingly low. They're great. They're very, very affordable. And even if you can't afford that, we're going to make it work for you. We'll get you in the door somehow so you can take some classes, check out some equipment. Unheard of, that just doesn't happen. So it's incredible. Another thing that we do is, we have a highly regarded production team that offers fee-for-service videos to help tell the stories of nonprofits. But we also make educational videos. We also make training videos, how-to videos, documentaries. And all of this we do to kind of further our mission of invigorating civic engagement, like we're trying to do tonight, inspiring diverse voices and strengthening community life. But if I boil it down to kind of like three kind of things we do government meetings, we teach, and we produce. And everything that we do, we make every intention to incorporate diversity, equity, and inclusion. Just wanted to give you a bigger picture of what we're actually doing out there in East County for the opportunity.
So next slide, please. So the strategic planning process. Right now, the staff and MHCRC are putting together some options for the commission to consider. And looking forward, what does the structure of the commission look like going forward, the IGA going forward? But we want to get the input from the jurisdictions whose signatories are on that IGA. So we're going to be reaching out for your input over the next couple months. The commission is going to put together some options and a recommendation, bring that back to the jurisdictions, also tell you what other jurisdictions' positions are on this so that you can make a well-informed decision going forward. Next slide, please. Some of the key decisions are whether to maintain the current commission structure the way it is, with volunteer representatives from each of the jurisdictions. There's also a breakdown of jurisdictions by commissioners so that each city, so each East city has one commissioner representing them. The county has one commissioner representing them, and the city of Portland has 3. So that's the breakdown across the jurisdictions as far as representation. How to manage cable and right-of-way responsibilities. So each jurisdiction kind of approaches right-of-ways differently. So we want to get a sense of how you want to manage that in the future and have everybody on the same page if it's an agreement to work together. Whether to pursue the authority to regulate broadband. Right now, that's not something you have the authority to do. Is that something you advocate for to broaden the responsibilities of the Mount Hood Regulatory Commission? And how to continue delivering PEG access and community center support. So if not through this, or if that diminishes, how do you look at funding these services in the future? Next slide, please. So the options, I said that the staff are putting together, they're developing with legal advice and bringing it to the commission. We will bring some of that early information back to you, get some input from you so that we can help the commission understand what the preferences are of the jurisdictions. And we will also schedule a time for your commissioner to work with staff at Wood Village to get to some of the details that will be helpful. I'm going to leave it at that. Well, we can go to the next slide. We could end up in a position where we are just adjusting an IGA and leaving everything else in place, knowing that you're going to have declining revenues at the time, and then come back at a future state to take a look at this. Okay. Or we could look at doing something pretty significant and changing the IGA, not having an IGA, changing the commission, not having the commission, and everywhere in between. So that's kind of the range of things that we'll be looking at. One of the things that we'll also talk about is the percentage of the franchise fees jurisdictions are willing to continue to contribute to cable oversight. And do member jurisdictions see a need to remain coordinated to collectively advocate, plan, and negotiate telecommunications services? So are we going to do this as a group? Would cities prefer to do it individually if they don't see things just the same? These are the kind of questions that we're going to bring back to you. So with that, I talked a little bit about the next steps. I don't really want to repeat that, but maybe I'll open it up for questions to see if you have any.
Council, questions? There's a lot here, and so
Well-
go ahead.
Well, basically what you're communicating here is the television side of the house and not the internet side of the house. So we're going to be obviously continuing broadband as far as putting that out. And so the cable companies, which they are still considered cable companies, they're still going to be continuing that. So we have to keep that in mind as we discuss all of this, right? That's what you're basically saying. So a lot of people, the biggest slide I got out of this was you've lost about 70,000, no, is it right? 700,000 people are not watching television through cable. Is that right?
70,000.
70,000.
Yep.
Roughly about
Then you're
half of what it was.
right. And prior to that, was it larger?
That only goes back to 2010. One of the things that was pointed out by Autumn when she was talking about how the group started in 1992 was that it was a burgeoning industry then. And people were just learning that that's the way that all of their TV programming would be provided. And so I think that while the subscribership might not have been as big because that was early adoption, that the excitement around getting cable, when can we afford to get cable, when will cable be delivered to our homes, made those times a lot different than today is. I think that some of that subscribership decline is because, people understand that they don't necessarily have to have cable in order to get the things that they want.
Right. So OTA over the air. So basically it was 2010 was our peak.
Right.
Is what we're saying. Okay.
Yep.
And Commissioner Hardin, if I may add as well. So as subscribership would have been growing as well, when fees associated with packages and with subscriptions also grew. So for instance, the addition of premium channels, packages, those franchise fees were also going up as well. And so when you see this flat plateau around the 2010s, as subscribership was starting to decline, but you see a plateau in the fees, or at least a slower decline, as rising fees associated with the subscriptions themselves were at some point able to compensate for the declines. And so there's a push and pull between the number of subscribers as well as how much they're each paying. And of course, through the franchise fees, it's the fees as a percentage. The fees are derived from a percentage of the total subscription costs. So these dynamics are tied together. And so when you see the drop off, that's why we see the financial cliff kind of looming so rapidly, even though there are still about 100,000 subscribers, which isn't actually 50% of what that peak was.
You know, and it was mentioned that those lines will converge, you know, and there will reach a time where I would suppose that cable companies could raise their rates, but that won't be a buffer necessarily anymore, because people will reach sort of a tipping point where they decide to cut the cord because of the cost. I have advocated that the commission should govern broadband on behalf of the communities. One of the primary reasons, very simple, you can't have broadband without the robust fiber backbone, and that's the same fiber that delivers cable television. So essentially, it's the same programming. It's, you know, sports, the entertainment. It's the same right of way, only you can't charge the provider to use that right of way for broadband at this point in time. And so why wouldn't you want it to have the same governance? And one of the reasons you might want it to have the same governance that we really didn't talk about in tonight's presentation is the consumer protection. So, you know, right now, if a customer has a complaint about their cable service that they aren't able to resolve, then the franchise agreement lays out ways that it will be resolved. And it's the staff with the MECRC and now staff with 311 at the city of Portland that worked on the behalf of our residents to make sure that those things are resolved. So if you were going it alone, then a staff member here might be having to field calls, and the city might have to advocate with Comcast to get that customer taken care of, instead of having a commission and a staff that does that on your behalf. And there's, you know, real money to be had there. I'm not entirely enchanted with the way that they've gone about it, but the city of Portland has actually started to explore the fact, you know, how much money are we losing because we can't charge broadband to be in the right of way with the very same fiber. That's what I would like the cities to be able to do. You know, continue just as we do to charge these providers to be in our rights of way. And I think that the other thing that goes unnoticed a little bit sometimes is the competition part. CenturyLink no longer provides a cable product. Ziply wants to be out of providing a cable product within 2 years. So soon the only cable provider will be Comcast. You know, and it's just kind of economics 101. If you're the only player in the game, you get to make the rules, right? Mm-hmm. And they have, you know, more money to lobby the federal government than the 6 cities do. So they're certainly going to make the rules, and absent a commission, no organized group to, you know, at least be a little bit of a roadblock or get in their way when they try to go get their way.
I always think about the ridership. So when it comes to like, let's take when we speak about telephone poles, it's not really a telephone pole anymore. It's a utility pole. But in the fact that the electric company is usually the one who's most vulnerable if something goes wrong with it. But the people that are attached to it generally have to pay a fee to the electric company to maintain that pole. So there's where they're going to have to pay to maintain their products on that pole. And so then right of ways and things like that are paid to the utility whose pole that belongs to. So then in a way, they are paying a fee to the cities and what have you through that. So
Well,
it
except for you're
avoids
not
having to
really-
pay
you're
twice,
not,
3 times and things like that.
You're not realizing those dollars though, unless you raise the franchise fee to the people that are in the right of way. And I know that the city has explored that. We were having discussions about it when I was still the mayor, and of course the city of Gresham, went to court over whether or not they could raise PG&E's fees and won. And so, raising a right of way fee is potentially possible. But just because they're paying to be on the pole, they're paying the owner of the pole. They're not paying you any more money. You're still only getting the money that's coming from the people that put the pole in the right of way.
Yeah, I'm thinking also as a city person and also as a citizen. I don't want to be paying 2 and 3 times as a citizen. I don't want to be paying 2 or 3 times to rent the same pole. That's what I'm also trying to avoid too. So I'm just throwing that out to you, Scott. So just to
What is,
not to get too
yeah.
far into minutia of this.
well,
but-
just to maybe frame this conversation a bit. What's your timeline when you're going to come back and talk to us about what internal discussions you've been having? Because it's really, I see this as the services. What do we want for services? How much do we want to pay? And where are we going to get the money?
That's right. And you have declining revenue
Yeah.
that you're recognizing now. And I think the commission has done a good job of foreseeing that conversation and wanting to have it sooner than later so that there's a plan in place. Our timeline, the commission is going to be considering options over the next couple months in the next couple commission meetings and a retreat. So we'll be back here in the 3 to 6 month timeframe, probably more than once. First, bringing you more information and then trying to get a sense of where you think the city would like to go, and then be able to bring you that same information from other jurisdictions. The fun thing about multi-party negotiations is there's a lot more data needed, right? And so probably a couple more touch points, and we'll be working with your city manager on how best to engage you throughout that process.
I want to just ask one more request that when you come back, I think what would be helpful, at least in my mind, for the council to see is we know the declining revenue. We also know that's competing against inflation just for the cost of running the organization. I'd like to hear the conversation that you have internally on if you don't get more money in the next 3 years, or pick a number, then what is going to be left of services to our community? Okay.
And it's, I mean, that's a, sorry. I had the same problem when I sat there too. It's a great question. And so was Councilor Clark's point that, not only are we thinking as a council, but thinking as consumers as well. And how much do we want to pay? And so sometimes it's a question of what do you want for what you're paying? Right. So for instance, last year, community competitive, the technology grants awards, we presented to you at the budget time that we had spent $2 million last year. And we talked about some of the programs and the Native American people, BIPOC people, and our equity focus, and that we're allowing folks that generally don't get the opportunity to tell their story on a far grander scale. $2 million. This year, the budget is for $1 million. And if egg fees continue to go down, then the grants for the community technology will continue to go down. And the number of people that are allowed to tell their story as a result of those grants will go down.
Okay. And you're going to gather input from other jurisdictions as you compile this information. Other questions from council that you'd like to see or would help? help us in our final. when
I
we-
had one, if that's okay. It's, cable seemed relatively straightforward, and I say relatively because it's not. You then had, the old school telecom agreements for phone service, et cetera. And it seems like on broadband specifically, there's more federal involvement and preemption. And it would just be nice to know kind of what is possible, notwithstanding the multiple jurisdictions involved with this current effort, but just the layers of government and what does regulation look like and what does franchisability even look like at a federal level, because that's just something beyond kind of our scope and ability to comprehend in the ever-changing environment. So it'd just be nice to know where this fits in the general scheme of the regulatory ability.
Thank you. And that's a great point. And I know that the staff options are going to tackle that. So you'll be able to see that moving forward, especially how the layers of government have an impact on your decision-making and your ability to regulate.
And at this point in time, it's been mentioned a couple of times that regulating broadband on the local level is federally preempted. And, I mean, that's just kind of the way I like to do things as your commissioner, choose big rocks and steep hills. But I think it's something to go after.
Now I know why I didn't get the introduction correct, because I was looking at this Metro East. So I started commingling the acronym. So I apologize for that, because you've been here before and we've been hearing this information. So if there's no further questions from council, we'll let you coordinate with the city manager when you come back with some other suggestions or information for us. So
Great. Thank you for your time.
thank you.
Yeah.
You.
Thanks. All right. I don't know everybody, the three individuals here. So why don't you come on up and introduce yourself? And the next presentation is on the Gresham Youth Violence Prevention Program. So nice to have you here tonight. We do know a little bit about this, so I know I've been looking forward to hear more about it.
All right. Good evening, Mayor Minor, City Council members, anybody who's listening in online. Thank you so much for allowing us to be here to talk about eMOPI. And thank you, City Manager Dirks here for making this so seamless here.
Oh, no, thank you for presenting about it.
Yeah. So my name is Iman Gassemi. I'm the Youth Services and Recreation Manager for the City of Gresham. I'm here with
Marcel Frazier. I work in the city manager's office for violence prevention and community partnerships.
So what we're doing here today is we're giving you all an update about eMOPI, which is the East Multnomah Outreach Prevention and Intervention Program. It is a state-funded program focused on youth violence prevention. We'll kind of talk about where eMOPI was when we first started this in March of 22 to where we're at now and the expansion that we've been able to do to be able to help support the youth and the residents here of Wood Village. So eMOPI is built on evidence-informed practices. Oh, yes, please. Evidence-informed practices, meaning that our strategies are grounded in data and research. We focus on ensuring that our interventions are effective and tailored to the needs of the communities that we serve. Our mission revolves around providing access to opportunities that promote growth and resilience for both youth and families through education, recreation, and comprehensive support services. Since our launch in March of 22, eMOPI has been committed to preventing violence, building strong community resource networks, and engaging youth in meaningful ways across East County. And you'll notice in a presentation slide a little bit more down here that we were more focused when we first started in March of 22 for the Gresham area. But earlier in this calendar year, we had Representative Ruiz and Representative Hudson with Senator Gorsuch. They went down during the short legislative session, and we were actually the only city that was awarded extra money, especially towards this violence prevention field. We were awarded an additional $2.5 million for the final year here that ends in June 30th of 25. And that service area allows us to expand from 82nd Avenue all the way out to Corbett. So we went from just focusing on Gresham to really focusing on all of East County. So that includes over 50,000 youth in that area. And if it was its own separate city, it would be the 12th largest city in our great state of Oregon. So our goals are pretty clear and focused on creating a safer and more engaged community. First, we aim to prevent and reduce violence through early intervention and deflection strategies that target the root causes of risky behavior. Second, we prioritize enhancing community safety by building stronger partnerships and offering targeted programs that address local needs. And lastly, we support youth development by providing enriching activities, life coaching and mentorship opportunities that help young people build resilience, leadership skills, and a sense of belonging. So what's our approach? Our approach to achieve these goals involves collaboration at multiple levels. For example, we partner with community-based organizations, Going Home 2 and POIC. They offer intensive case management and life coaching for those who are the highest of risk of gun violence. As we know that those individuals represent a very small percentage of our population. That's why we have these organizations that their whole sole focus is giving them that support. Additionally, we are finalizing memorandums of understandings, also known as MOUs, with local school districts, which include Centennial, Reynolds, Gresham Barlow, Park Rose, and David Douglas. This will allow us to conduct, for example, outreach at high-risk sporting events. For example, football games that are happening right now. We also implement deflection strategies designed to prevent youth from entering the criminal justice system by providing alternative pathways and support. So.
Thank you again. My name is Marcel Frazier. I work in the city manager's office. I'll talk about some of our service areas for the highest risk individuals. So one of the core focuses of the MOPI is providing tailored support to high risk individuals, especially those who are most vulnerable to gun violence and other serious risks. Our approach includes key strategies and collaborations that ensure these individuals receive the guidance, resources, and interventions they need. First, we partner with community-based organizations like Going Home 2 and POIC, both of which would specialize in intensive case management and life coaching. Their work is crucial for these at the highest risk, offering personalized support that addresses not just the symptoms, but the root causes of destructive behavior. Whether it's through helping youth navigate challenges at school, find employment, or address root traumas, these organizations are on the front lines, ensuring that the most vulnerable receive the focused attention they need to change their life. And then I'll talk through some of the IGAs and the MOUs that we have going on currently. We've been in the works with Reynolds, GSB, Park Rose, and David Douglas in order to provide tailored outreach at high-risk football games, high-risk sporting events. Why does this matter? Well, in the last 5 years since the COVID spike, we have seen youth-involved incidents with high schoolers from Centennial, Reynolds, David Douglas, Park Rose, Gresham, and Barlow. So basically all of our service areas, we've had youth pick up guns, oftentimes killing youth from other high schools. This next partnership is our Multnomah County Behavior Health Gun Violence Reduction Team. So this is a new program that has come online in the last couple of years. It's a gun violence trauma focused lens where you get a licensed therapist to come provide services to folks who have experienced gun violence, whose family have experienced gun violence, or anybody in their peripheral have experienced gun violence. So they will put them on a caseload anywhere from 6 months to 18 months to work through therapy, family therapy, group therapy, et cetera. And with our expanded funding, we've also introduced the Ceasefire Gun Violence Reduction Strategy. So Ceasefire is a gun violence reduction strategy that's administered by the National Institute of Criminal Justice Reform, and it is centered on a weekly shooting review. So what would that look like in East Multnomah County? It would probably be East Precinct of Portland, Gresham PD, and also Multnomah County Sheriff's Office. They will go over every single shooting incident from the last 7 days. In Portland, we hold these meetings on on Thursdays. We'll figure out what NICJR would like to hold the meetings, but we will tailor an approach. So there'll be folks who are up for enforcement and then folks who are up for referrals. So say if you're somebody who's up for a referral, you'll come across a shooting review. There's a list of 5 to 7 criteria, including previous arrests, previous shooting incidences, previously being on probation or parole, being in close proximity to gun violence, or having a family member in close proximity to gun violence. Say if that referral is made, that will then go to Going Home To or POIC, and they will get on a life coaching caseload, and that may look like trauma therapy, that may look like parent readiness classes, emotional support classes, job readiness, educational attainments, et cetera. And then that would conclude with a course called Healthy, Wealthy, Wise, which means that not that you're healed, but you're ready to go back into society as a productive person. Now, for the folks who don't meet referral criteria, then the Sheriff's Office, PPB, and GPD will go what we call the enforcement route, which is you may need to go to jail, unfortunately. And then Iman will talk about some of our community partners that we have on our current caseload.
Perfect. Thank you, Marcel. So our program, Emopi, would not be where it's at without our partners. As you can kind of see here, it's broken down. There's 16 community-based organizations, all the way from pro-social activities, wraparound services, and to intensive case management. Marcel was talking about our intensive case management, and I'll kind of focus here on our wraparound services and our pro-social activities. When we talk about pro-social activities, we're talking about organizations like PAL, which is the Portland Athletics and Activities League, or ESOGA, which focuses on esports and e-gaming, or we have the Underground, which focuses on CrossFit. They all play a pivotal role. So these partners allows our youth to be engaged in positive, enriching experiences, everything from sports, self-defense, and esports. For example, a couple of the programs that PAL offers is junior NBA, flag football, girls self-defense, cheerleading classes, just an array of activities for our youth so they can be involved with it. Because everything here is through a state grant, it does not, we know that cost is a big barrier for a lot of our families. Everything is free for our community because it is covered through the grant. But when we talk about wraparound services, we have key partners like Elevate Oregon, REAP, and HALA. These organizations are experts in providing comprehensive support that addresses the various challenges our youth and families face. So whether it's mentoring, educational guidance, or even helping navigate personal or family struggles, their work is integral to creating stable, supportive environments for our youth. Now, we also have the partnerships with Project 48 and New Avenues for Youth. They have more specific services to be able to help. So for example, whether they're impacted by houselessness or they're part of the foster system, these organizations will be able to give them that support. The part of this, we originally started with 5 organizations giving us support. So now we're up to the 16. Really, there were a bit, some of the gaps we've been able to fill by having these organizations there. So that's something we're very excited about to start here. In short, our community partners are the backbone of Emopi. By working together, we're able to create a comprehensive network of support that addresses every aspect of youth and family well-being, from prevention and intervention to mentorship and community engagement. On part of this, part of the partnership that we have, these 16 organizations, we also have a partnership with Work Systems that provides workforce development for strictly for East County. When we went into contract with them, we let them know that it has to be 82nd to Corbett. And because of that, we're able to have 103 summer internships and 32 year-round programs. So these kids will be able to have this opportunity to put a couple dollars into their pockets. So for example, over the summer, I had 6 interns who interned for me at City Hall. All of them were, it was their first job. And so it really allowed them to understand what we do at City Hall. They got to sit in some meetings and just to see what it is on a day-to-day basis. So then they can have this opportunity if they want to be involved as they get older into local government. That's something that will give them that opportunity to be able to do. So I mentioned earlier about the map. So this is where all our partners are located at over here. As you can see, a vast majority are located in East County, but all 16 of them, as part of their contract, have to do that work in that 82nd to Corbett area. So if an issue happens to arise here in Wood Village, we would be able to give that support depending on the needs of that individual. This was our previous service area, as I mentioned. That is the outline of the city of Gresham. And this is the new service area. So you can see where Gresham is located at over there in the middle, but then where we added that extended services, which now includes East Portland, Fairview, Gresham, Maywood Park, Troutdale, and Wood Village. So it's a way to, really our goal is to show this collaboration of the 6 cities working together for one common goal, and that's to reduce the violence and to give more of a safer community for our kids. So what are our indicators of success as we're coming to end here of our presentation? Since March of 22, we've been able to support over 15,000 youth and families across East County directly through direct or indirect services. We've seen reductions in violence, increased participation in our programs, and a stronger community connections by collaborating effectively with our schools, behavioral health services, and community organizations. We've been able to align our efforts with Wood Village's values, focusing on family stability and community pride. Our united vision for East County is one of a connected, thriving, and secure future for all. Before I finish here, I have this number over here, 343. We always want to take as many victories as we can. 343, that was the last time a youth was killed in Gresham city limits. So an RIP to Alexander Ortiz de Jesus. He was a 15-year-old who was shot and killed. But I actually got to meet the young man's sister. I started a program called Gresham Rising Stars, and through that, I was able to meet the young lady who's a very strong girl. And so what we're doing is to make sure that girls like his sister don't have to be impacted like that, at 9 years old and having to deal with that extreme trauma. Right. So we want to take wins anywhere that we can get them. So to go 343 days is a big win. And I hope next time I come over here and being able to talk to you all, that number will be even much larger, and it continues to rise because of the program and the support that we have from our legislators, from people like you all, and all. So with the support of Wood Village's leaders and residents, EMOPI can continue to grow and provide even more opportunities for our youth and families. So we just ask you that you join us in the shared vision to build a safer, stronger community. Thank you for your time and consideration. This is our contact information over here. So if you need to contact me, I'm the project manager, or you can contact Marcel through the city manager's office over there. So we both work very closely together on this program with one common goal, is to helping out the kids. Thank you.
And before we quite open for question, I just want to give you a little more piece of data to end with. So in the calendar year 2021, Portland had more homicides than Seattle and San Francisco combined. Seattle and San Francisco combined have 1.5 million people. Portland is not even at 650,000 people. So when we ask about the significance of gun violence in East Multnomah County, out of those Portland homicides, nearly 50% of all homicides happened east of 82nd Avenue. That touches up against Gresham's most violent neighborhoods of Rockwood, Wilkes, North Gresham, and also the Centennial neighborhood. And then it bumps up against, obviously, some of Wood Village's, Fairview, and some of our smaller sister cities' problems. When we did an analysis, we saw that Gresham had 4 times the amount of homicides as Hillsborough. Hillsborough is almost identical in size. Wood Village, Fairview, and Troutdale also, unfortunately, punch above its weight when it comes to homicides when you compare them to West Side cities like Tualatin, Tigard, et cetera.
Questions from council?
I was just curious about the data in our area, and I know it's kind of hard to pinpoint, but why we have a higher number of homicides compared to other, if there's like a particular reason or.
Yeah, I would say one place we could look at are the school districts. If you look at Reynolds, Park Rose, David Douglas, Centennial and GSB, compared to PPS, they do have a significantly lower graduation rate amongst Latinos, whites, and Black populations. Rockwood is actually the poorest neighborhood in all of Multnomah County. Not to say that poverty causes gun violence, but poverty is definitely an indicator potentially of gun violence. Lack of resources, lack of safe groceries, lack of safe routes to school, lack of sidewalks, all those little things are public health indicators of gun violence. So Portland uses this thing called hotspot mapping, and they show clusters of gun violence within their city limits. And all of the clusters of gun violence coincide with the clusters of high poverty rates, high drug use, low parent involvement, and low school education rates. So I'm not going to say it's a slam dunk as far as if you have low graduation rates, lack of access to groceries, lack of access to public transportation. It doesn't always mean there'll be gun violence, but those are definitely indicators and underlying factors for gun violence.
So I'm just in awe about how kids have access to that, considering that if they are in a low poverty area and they don't have those resources, like how are they able to, like, or they're not even making any money, how are they able to get these? What's this? I just.
You get it for free at first, and then it costs money afterwards, and so it's pretty easy to steal. That's how they get hooked.
Yeah.
Yep. Unfortunately, that's the game.
Yeah.
The, certainly, I mean, this, you're doing great. I mean, I don't know all the stats or the data, but certainly we need all the help we can get. And we need many people all coming together to try to reduce gun violence and provide our underserved populations more support. So thank you for that work. I always go back to the access to guns. And all sorts of countries in the world have mental health issues. All sorts of countries in the world have poor people. All sorts of places in the world, there are people that are hungry. We have the highest homicide rate by far. And we have the most lax, if I'm not even sure I call it lax, gun laws and how we approach weapons in this city, in this country. When you're working on a referral, and you mentioned your relationship with the police, are you forthcoming when you're working with a client that you know has access to guns? Are you forthcoming with the law enforcement? If you know they may have a stolen gun, is that information shared with the police?
So to start, there are two referral sources. There's the Behavior Safety Assessment Team referral service, and that comes from Multnomah Education Service District. Whenever a gun is identified by a student, whether parent says they have it, students say they have it, usually Multnomah County Sheriff, PPB, or GPD will go to the home and they will ask for consent to do a safety check within the home. So that's upon a consenting adult. So if parents say, yes, we consent to a search, they will go then and search the alleged vicinity that the gun was in and hopefully do due diligence. But if a parent says no, it kind of shuts the door right
Yeah, but my question was, your organization, you are sharing freely that information with law
Yeah,
enforcement.
we're not direct service providers. We contract with 16 agencies. And maybe Iman could speak on their, what they do.
Yeah, on a little bit of what Marcel was kind of mentioning, for us, the big part for us is building these relationships with the schools and building it with the police departments to be able to get these referrals. these referrals, when we go in there, we'll find out, they'll give us a quick note letting us know if there was a gun involved or if somebody threatened somebody with a gun. For example, there was a case last year where a kid threatened another kid with a gun. After doing some research and going out and talking to the family, having the family come out to the school and getting a little bit more information, just found out that the kid was fabricating it all. And so then at that point, we got to figure out what are the next steps. Whether we get them into therapy, whether we get them involved with one of the 16 organizations, whether we get them something, right? Where these are level 2 or above. So these are the kids we know that they're going to be a danger to the society. They're going to be a danger to themselves, danger to their families, and dangers to others. So that's when we go take these next steps to make sure that it's no longer a danger. They make sure that they follow up with them and all that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Other questions?
I just want to mention that this is not something that is new. Like these statistics aren't new. I grew up here since 2001, and those have been around since then. So we're talking, well over 20 years. So this is nothing new to the area of East Multnomah County. So kudos to you all and then our state representatives that help push for these funds to get here, because I think the biggest thing that we are lacking, and we have done a good job, but I think is number one is resources out here. Resources for youth, for safe spaces, safe adults, and trusting adults that they can feel comfortable around to share those things like that the mayor is mentioning about gun violence. So, are they seeing guns at home? And, do they have someone they can outreach to say, hey, I don't feel safe, or whatever the case may be. So I just wanted to put out there that this is not just because of the pandemic. So this has been going on for over decades now. You guys talked about expanding your services. So what does that mean for Wood Village?
Yeah, simple. It means that if there is a situation that you're noticing, whether in your schools or the community, or maybe even at some apartment complexes, you could reach out to either of us, and then that's when we'll take it. I meet with these partners every 2 weeks. Our first meeting is, we went live last week with the contracts. And our first meeting is this upcoming Friday, and we're going to meet every 2 weeks. So if there's situations that arise, we can hurry up and jump on it and make sure that we can let people know. So for example, with the 5 organizations that we have now, one of the situations that we were dealing with is, like, for example, the Rockwood Village Apartments. We knew that was an area that was having a lot of issues since its opening 2 years ago. Now we have GPD actually has a little office actually inside the Rockwood Village Apartments. So they're on site. And then we've done multiple events over there, whether it's food distribution, whether it's World Cup watch parties, whether it's movie nights, or whether it's hosting a block party. But for us, it's just being involved and being where the community is at, right?
Yeah, let me follow up on the question there too. Can, for instance, one of us or Councilor Rio Campos, if he knows somebody that is involved or knows that there is a danger here, can he just give a number to that individual or to that parent or to that counselor or teacher? Can he just give, is that how a person would get a hold and say, we need some input, we need help here?
Yeah, and also it really depends on the age of the student. So our support is for youth 24 and younger. So especially if they're a minor, we definitely need.
So who do we, if I want to give this service to somebody I know that needs help with their family, what do I give them what I'm seeing here?
Yes, sir. And then we take it from there. Then we set it up, we meet with them, and then we figure out the correct partners to be there. Sometimes we need to have multiple partners. Sometimes we just need one of our intensive case managers. So it really just depends on the situation.
Yeah.
So could it be reversed where the mayor noticed something, and he's the one that's directly reaching out to you about some individuals?
Please. Absolutely.
And then you
100%.
would reach out to that individual?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's, I appreciate that clarification. It's got to go, it can't just come from a counselor or a mayor. The
Like a
person,
citizen, yeah.
yeah, sitting next, is in crisis. they gotta get action.
Yeah. Just another question. So you guys showed your maps of all your providers. Who's kind of per se serving the Fairview Wood Village area? Obviously, everybody else is, located in Gresham, East Portland. So what providers do direct services for Fairview and Wood Village?
I would honestly that they're all kind of roaming around. So like, for example, we have We Belong PDX that's focused out over here. We have on all of them really. The REAP, their focus is for the Reynolds area, specifically for Reynolds and the school kids out there. We Belong is focusing on the Rockwood and Centennial neighborhoods, so on and so forth. So all these organizations, it really just depends on the situation for what's happening with Wood. And that's why we wanted the support from our legislators when they were like, expand these services that allows all these organizations you see here to have access to Wood Village and to be able to help out the residents and the youth out here to make sure that they have the same access as somebody who's in Maywood Park or East Portland or whatnot. That we told them that we want you to kind of roam around. And so if there is something that is happening here, if there is a community or a certain area that you notice, you can just reach out and we'll make it happen.
It would be, and the reason I ask, because, we do a lot of city events and we try to ensure that folks that are there as, vendors or, are providing resources that our community can say, okay, I can go to them if I need X, Y, and Z, right? So for me, that's why it's important to kind of identify those organizations as, we have the Pumpkin Fest coming up and looking at, again, vendors and organizations that can provide resources and programming for our community members, that they be present to, again, start establishing that connection, because we all know that things don't really happen unless trust is built. Right. And so if they can start seeing these folks more frequently, they can say, okay, now I can reach out to these folks, because again, we know somebody in a crisis is not going to go to a stranger. They're going to go to somebody they trust. So.
And that's a big part of what we do is these relationship buildings, right? It's to be able
Can you come, is there an organization we could contact and say, come out, set up a table and share information?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, the table days, and I know that we've spoken to Reynolds High School. They're telling us, please come on out to the school, have table days. We definitely want to.
Well, you're going to get an invite from us, okay?
Yeah, please do.
We have enough events and we want people here engaging with our community.
We love community events and community engagement events that allows us to talk to the people, right? And that's where to where they're at, meet them where they're at, and to be able to just kind of hear them out.
You got a willing partner here.
Excellent.
I mean, there is no question about it. So
that's what we love to hear.
yeah. All right. Any other questions or comments?
Quick comment. So first, thank you for this. Clearly you've been doing it for a while, and this was I think a surprise when we found out it was expanding to our area. Welcome surprise, obviously, and that's part of the comment. This will clearly need additional funding, not just to sustain what's been built here, but hopefully to grow it both in terms of more service providers and then what I'll call this built infrastructure. We know we're kind of facility poor in terms of community centers, recreation facilities, and that we just stay engaged for those larger asks at the legislature. But also just for your acknowledgement, while this ran through Gresham, I was invited to be part of an RFP panel for some of the proposed service providers. And so I got to read more about their history, and certainly, on the map, that's where they're located, and I think have a deeper, richer history in those areas. That doesn't preclude the new relationships that are being built and formed, and just welcoming to see that to grow and flourish. So thank you for the work, and we just really ask to be kept up to date and involved so we can support and continue and build on this work.
Yeah.
Periodic updates would be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's what we're here. It's a team game. We want to be able to share everything here with you all, just because we want this program to grow and to make sure that's a safer community for all of us.
Thank you very much. And you are absolutely correct.
Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here. All right, we do have an action item coming. The resolution 23-2024 master fee schedule, building fees, is coming back for us tonight for action.
That's it.
Not John.
don't know if he's watching, but. Okay, let me share real quick. All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councilors. So this is a master fee update. There's not a lot of new information. The reason why this is coming back to you is we brought this to you at your July meeting to update one that we had brought you in May. As you guys might know, there's a state requirement for cities to offer online permitting that we're trying to comply with. The state is contracted with a vendor, Acela, and they're trying to implement a solution for anyone who doesn't want to purchase their own online permitting system. One of the things we're finding out as part of that is we had been under the assumption that whenever we submitted our fee schedule to BCD, Building Codes Division, they were actually going to review it and for compliance. Turns out they don't actually review it for compliance. They just post it and get comments. They don't actually take a look at it and make sure that it complies with state regulations. That's not one of their
To
functions.
be fair, they don't have the authority to actually do that.
They don't, yes, they don't have the authority to look at something and tell us if it's wrong. So as a part of this process, we're finding, and part of this is also, they're trying to implement a solution that spans multiple jurisdictions with one vendor. And that presents some, as they get further into it, they're finding more and more challenges of trying to impose one solution on jurisdictions with multiple issues. So this is slated, I think, to go live in October or November of this year. So after we came back to you to make the changes in July, there's additional changes that were made. A lot of that was pulling out. They don't want us to have fees that we've traditionally called building, but are more building adjacent or public works fees or planning fees. We can't put those into the system because their software can't deal with it. And they don't want us to just pass a resolution with those in that. They just want a resolution with their fees. And then we would put the other fees that we still have to charge, but aren't a part of their software system in a separate resolution. Which all of that to say is this is primarily an exercise in trying to give the state what they want so they'll stop harassing us.
Called an exercise in futility.
Yes.
There were actually a couple of fees that, because when they set up the software with the vendor, it was formulaic to actually match what, the authority BCD has for fees. And there were a few of ours, because we matched with Gresham's, that actually didn't comply. So they had to be adjusted a little bit. Most of it was related to rounding. But there were a few that actually changed because they didn't comply with the statutory authority, which was kind of news to us. We thought they already looked at them, but as Seth said, they don't have the authority to. So that's where some of the revisions are too.
And the revisions Seth's presenting today are very minor changes from the ones that were presented in July. As e-permitting, which is DCBS, was finalizing their review, they found just a couple of fees that were missing. And then they didn't like the fact that we just took a current fee and didn't have anything for the proposed. Apparently that didn't indicate it was deleted. So we had to clarify that. So that's just a few minor changes for this.
Is it safe to say that there are no substantive changes in this?
Yes.
Pretty much.
Okay.
And it went through the full review and it will come back and for the ordinance at the next meeting.
Thank you. Any questions? Then we need a motion.
Let me get there. I'll skip all the details because you've seen these twice before.
We have. Okay.
In the packet.
Their motion?
I move to approve resolution 23-2024, a resolution updating the master fee schedule, including adjusting building fees as amended.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Seth, for those changes.
I was reading through it and I was like,
Minuscule.
What?
I saw where they were highlighted and I was like,
did too.
okay.
Yeah,
was like.
they got to do something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Greg, we are at the point where we're going to take a look at the LOC voting priorities.
Yeah,
So
so.
we're going to take a break there for a second. Go ahead.
So every long session, the League of Oregon Cities, through its work groups and committees, puts out a whole slew of potential legislative priorities. Typically, they're very broad in nature, typically also match state priorities. This year, they did 24 of them. I mean, you'll notice there are no House or Senate bills. It's not like, oh, we're going to support Senate Bill 2319. They're just very broad stroked initiatives, thoughts, items, projects. What you'll notice is missing from all this are property tax and anything related to property tax reform or amendments or adjustments. And that's because the league has made that a permanent priority. What that also means is there is nothing specific mentioned of what the league may or may not do related to property tax. Seth, and working with our legislators, try to take a run at adjustments to the change property ratio. Turns out after more legislative work with their attorneys, that would take a constitutional amendment so that it's not moving forward. We're hopeful there may be some things tweaked around maximum assessed value and some other legislative tweaks, but it's likely to say we're not going to get a lot of big push from the league on property tax without more grassroots work and finding solutions and pushing it through the league. So I just wanted to caveat some of the league's priorities there. This certainly doesn't preclude the city from advocating and supporting specific bills that may come up through the session, specifically around manufactured home support, security, financing for whether it's co-op ownership or nonprofit ownership. Also around if we have specific issues related around public safety, for example, or funding requests that support our city or region. So wanted to caveat that. Hopefully you got a chance to at least scan this through. The thought, what we've done in the past is we just kind of go council by councilor, which five they liked, we tally them up, and hopefully they're closely aligned to get to five. So there's 24 here, we get to pick five. So with that, I'll leave it open to the mayor on how to pick our folks.
Okay, well, I have picked five, and what I tried to do is kind of get the biggest umbrella in some of these categories. So I'll just go through if that works for everybody, and we just give Greg the information. Greg compiles it and then uses that with discussions with League of Oregon Cities. Greg, I have under community and economic development, shelter and homeless response. Under general government committee, I have behavioral health enhancements. Under energy and environment, I have building decarbonization and investment in community resiliency.
Is that the affordability challenges?
That would be under energy, environment committee, investment in
Oh, I see
community.
it. Yep. Got it.
Okay, I'll slow down here. I'm going.
No, you're good.
Okay. And my fifth was transportation in a shift from gas tax to road user fee. Got it. Okay. Good. And if you want to, and if you haven't had a chance to go through this thoroughly, or you want to look at it again, then Greg, they could send it to you, couldn't they? I just text or
I mean, they
email it to
could.
you.
The issue would be if there's not, a good alignment, maybe 2 or 3 aligned, but then what do you do for the last 2? This is due.
Well, let's just keep going then. All right, who's next? Oh. Ira, you want to go?
I mean, I'm pretty comfortable with going with all those. The only other one that I saw in here that could, depending, is the parks immunity.
Recreational immunity restoring.
Recreational immunity. Just because again, that's a significant
Well, and
one.
again, whether the league supports it, which I'm guessing probably regardless of the cities. So when the cities vote on this, I should have said this earlier. Each city votes on this. It goes back to the LOC board. They then pick what they're going to support. Most likely recreational immunity, whether cities pick it or not, is going to be a hot topic.
Yeah.
If not them, at least for me.
I'll always want to sponsor water and wastewater. So infrastructure funding. That's something we can definitely help with our wastewater. And then the other one was, I thought you would pick cybersecurity. But artificial intelligence, I think we're a little too far away from that, even though it's going to hit us really hard. But cybersecurity to add.
Doc?
I agree with cybersecurity and privacy. I think that kind of correlates with our newer generation too. Building, and then the other, building the carbonization, behavioral health, and then funding and housing.
What was that last
Oh,
one?
excuse me, I'm sorry. The shelter and homeless response.
And you also said decarbonization.
Decarbonization. Building decarbonization.
Yep, got it.
Okay, in community and economic development, I have infrastructure funding. And in finance and taxation, I have put a tax on marijuana. Never liked that from the get-go. Broadband, cybersecurity, digital equity and inclusion. Transportation, shift from a gas tax to a road user fee. And underwater and wastewater, I'd like to see some operator in training apprenticeships.
Good, we're nicely spread out across all the
We are,
priorities.
yes, we are all over the place.
There are some common ones. Let me do a quick recap. Let's see.
I don't know what's in the transportation package as far as the 2025. I imagine that would be something if it affects Portland. It'd sure be nice.
And again, I mean, again, these are such broad themes that they align with a lot of state goals and priorities that even if the league doesn't necessarily endorse or support them, it doesn't mean that things like this won't be coming up and be supported through other groups and advocacy. But certainly cybersecurity and privacy got 3 votes. And then we've got infrastructure funding with 2, homeless and shelter response with 2, behavioral health with 2, decarbonization with 2. And gas tax to road user fee got 2. So I think we're 2 over 5. I think that was 7.
Had behavioral health at 3. That was the mayor, Pyro, and Dara.
Yeah. Oh, that one's at 3 as well?
Yeah.
Okay. We have 2 of them at 3. That's the behavioral health and the cybersecurity. So those 2 seem pretty locked in. So that's the infrastructure funding, shelter and homelessness response. What I can tell you about how that worked in the short session, because Multnomah County, we have our separate tax. We didn't really see any increased state funding when they had state funding for homelessness solutions. Not sure that'll happen again, but just the state in the past, if Portland, Multnomah County have dedicated funding for something, the state doesn't tend to kick in much for it. Building decarbonization was 2. Gas tax to road user fee was 2.
I only gave you 2, so I didn't know if that make it stronger or what. Do you need more votes? Is that what you're saying?
Just looking for fun.
5 from each.
We've got
And
two, so
So
that's
building decarbonization. And,
that can
Break the tax.
yeah.
So then shift from gas tax road user fee has 2 votes.
Something we could get done.
Oh, yeah, shift from gas tax to road tax.
Okay. We get to pick, I believe, one more priority. Am I
Oh,
counting
one
everything
more.
correct?
One more.
Yes.
Behavioral health, cyber, road user fee, what was the fourth?
Maybe that was it. Maybe we're only at 3.
If you'll ever stop marijuana, Mayor, but
My best.
yeah. They're just gonna change up how they collect the taxes.
So are we there?
Did we get
Just
3
one
votes on
more.
infrastructure?
No, we're still at 2 for infrastructure.
Right.
Can I vote twice on one?
That was your first vote. Oh, you can
Oh,
vote
yeah.
twice
Can I
on.
vote twice for water and wastewater? No, probably not. Okay, so,
And what are the
They're all split.
contenders?
So that way,
just had one more, so.
It looks like actually, I think we have.
Shelter and homeless
Oh.
response. There
Yep,
you
I
go.
think we'll have the shelter and response, behavioral health, building decarbonization, and then, well, cybersecurity, and then there was the road user fee. So,
That's 6.
so we could kick, the one that still had 2 votes was infrastructure, which is most likely going to be funded anyway through other affordable housing.
All right, we got our 5.
okay.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, Greg.
Thank
Go
you very
fight, win.
much. Yeah, and like I said, I think it's underway.
Get down there to LOC and bang them on the
Well,
table.
I think we'll be spending our time more in Salem this year, especially when the session gets underway. We know what bills are real and not. We can advocate specifically for Woodville specific and our region issues. So this will certainly help the league and we'll certainly be advocating for our needs.
Good. All right, any other, Greg, any other announcements or reminders?
Reminder, so we have the Hispanic Heritage Month celebration put on by the Natural Leaders, sponsored by Wood Village, this Friday here in the plaza. So hopefully you can attend that. I think it's 5 to 7, 5:30 to 7.
30 to 7.
So
5:30.
great fun and enjoyment there. We also then have our utility rate open house next Tuesday here. For those that were around during the tiny home RV open house that we held, it'll be similar-ish format, but some lessons learned. We're going to do a presentation at the start, probably around 6:10-ish, kind of let people come in, gather. We'll do a brief presentation that walks through the different boards that we have out, a little more detail about the why and what this does, and then have it open up to the stations with the info boards that we can have individual conversations with those that attend. We've had a few people call or stop by, some just concerned just about bills in general. Some that are lower users are excited about it. So not sure what we'll get to the open house. It might be mixed. We just don't know. But that's next Tuesday, 6 o'clock here.
Next
Okay.
Tuesday?
Correct. A week from today.
6 to 7:30. Ivy Day on Saturday, September 21st. Play East 5K costume dash.
Oh, yes. And if you want a t-shirt, sign up before this Friday.
For the
For
costume.
the,
dash.
for the costume 5K
Okay.
dash, if you want your t-shirt pre-ordered.
Okay.
And something that's not.
And then the 9th annual Pumpkin Fest is October 26th.
Yep. And Seth, you had something?
The Metro Mixer.
Oh, goodness, yes, the
Yes.
Metro Mixer. That's where Metro comes out to different cities in the region about once a quarter to have
Forgot about
it's
that.
more or less a social, but you can engage with different Metro staff. It's going to be here at City Hall next Thursday, 4 to 6 p.m.
We are hosting that. Fairview hosted it the last time and they've asked us to host it. So it'll be beer and wine.
I think it's a cash bar is what they said.
Okay, that cheaters.
No,
We'll be out here on the back patio. So it's
Time again?
4 to 6.
4 to 6.
On the
You
19th.
can leave.
Correct.
On the 19th.
It's very casual and it's comfortable and it's about Metro the wanting to in East County more than they have in the past. So, okay.
Have we confirmed that our Metro Counselor will join us.
He's supposed to. So, I mean, yeah, our Metro Counselor, Counselor Simpson, the Metro President Lynn Peterson, and Metro COO Marisa are expected to be in attendance, as well as other key Metro staff people in charge of their various, I'll just call them business groups, whether it's, planning,
Well,
solid waste. et
His
cetera.
name is on the invite along with mine, so he better be there.
It was thought because we had to proper some dates so they can make sure that their people can also attend. So he expected to attend.
Perfect. All right, if there's no other comments, questions, we're adjourned. All right.
I want you to know that was an AI robot that hopped on the meeting, recording, and was